So by now, we've all heard that there was a camera behind Charlie Kirk, and that camera, soon after the incident, I'm calling it an incident for YouTube, soon after that incident occurred, that camera was removed and the SD cards taken out of it. Which, anybody who knows anything about crime scenes and whatnot, there's no way that should have happened. And yet, they're being incredibly vague and cagey about who exactly it was that did that. But if we do a little bit of critical thinking, we might be able to figure out who that was. And I don't think it's who TPUSA wants us to think it was. Most people would have seen by now this video, and I'm going to show the video in a second, where you can see the TPUSA guys taking down the camera and removing the SD cards. Now, this was a major no-no. This never should have happened. You do not remove items from a crime scene, ever. I mean, the fact that they would have even considered it is outrageous. Now, the reason that their justification for it is since nobody had sectioned off the crime scene, kids were going in and taking hats off the thing, and they thought someone might take the cameras. Well, you know, as we know, since we have seen them do it, anybody who would have taken down the cameras would have immediately been recognized, and it would have been commented on, and it would have been, revealed rather quickly. So why the big rush? And also, why wasn't that roped off as a crime scene immediately? As far as I can tell, I have only seen in all the videos one guy who was a police officer, or I don't even know if he was a police officer. He was either a police officer or campus security. Where were they? How come none of them rushed in this situation? But we'll save that for another day. That's another issue. In the meantime, let's talk about this SD card. Let's look at the videos, because I think I have a pretty good idea of who it could be. Now, on Candace Owens, very soon after the event happened, we learned that that was the same person that also quickly ran behind the tent after the incident, went up on the side of the wall, and started filming when they take Charlie out. What's interesting is that just before doing this, just before taking down the SD cards, this is the same guy who immediately after Charlie is shot, he runs directly underneath that overpass through that tunnel and runs over here and starts filming them as they take Charlie away. So this guy reacted pretty damn quickly, considering the fact that he should have been in shock, and the last thing that should have been on his mind should have been filming. Now, Candace Owens, of course, has spoken to him. If you are familiar with her show at all, you will know that she has spoken to him and has, in fact, seen the video from the SD card and asked him what he was doing in this when he was, up here on the rocks. And his answer was that he was calling back to the home office, the TPUSA's offices. Again, not like they weren't already roped in or streamed in, but all right. If that's what he was doing, I guess for now we're going to go with that. But if you ask me, all of this does seem to be a little bit suspicious. Now, Candace Owens went and she spoke to this. She said that she recognized him. She had his phone number and she called him and spoke to him. And, well, let her tell you how that went.
Who is that? Like, actually, I should be able to figure this out because I've got a pretty big network at Turning Point USA. The person's wearing shades. I'm not recognizing the individual. And I reach out to somebody on the inside and I'm just like, who's this person? And they tell me the person's name and I go, oh, wait a second. And I look again, I'm like, I know this person because it's been a few years, but I know this person. This person's been around Turning Point for quite some time, for years. Like I said, back when I was working at Turning Point, early days. So I'm like, I'm just going to reach out. Obviously, I know this individual. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to say, hey, what's up with this? Where is this footage? Why did you do this? What were you doing up there on the rocks? What's up? Like, this is not the first thing that I would do if I had just witnessed Charlie Kirk being shot. And I'll say this right now. He was extremely forthcoming. Like, as soon as I reached out, I just sent a text because I still had his number. And he was extremely forthcoming, immediately got onto the phone. And first and foremost, I should say, obviously, he's seeing all of these clips going viral and he is fearful for his family. He doesn't have any security and people are looking, And he said, look, as you can see in the footage, I was sitting right to the left or to the left of Charlie when Charlie got shot, and I instantly knew that he was not going to be okay. I instantly knew that he was dead. And I then, as you can see, people that are running, anybody that was in that zone, ran to the back, and he caught his breath. He wanted to check in with and communicate to other people that were working with and around Turning Point USA. That's why he's on his phone, communicating to them what had happened. That's what he told me. Then I asked, okay, well, what about this camera thing? Why would you grab the cameras? And he says, because the first thing that I thought is that I better secure the footage and be helpful and hand that footage over to the feds. Well, obviously, that's where things get into a pickle with me because we don't trust the feds, right? I'm like, no, we don't trust the feds. So we don't got to do that. Just let me have the footage. I'm like, just send me the footage, please. Let me look at it. There's a lot of conspiracies that are floating around right now. People don't know what to believe. People are doing what I would say, credible videos. People that certainly have the credibility are ballistics experts that are saying that what we see in the front is an exit wound, not an entry wound. I don't know one way or the other because I'm not an expert. I'm getting inundated with messages from people that hunt, people that are in the military saying that this had to have come from another direction. This footage could help.
So there's a lot here. So for one thing, I don't think Candace is right when she says that, it just because they own it, they can share it. Not necessarily. Not if it's evidence that's part of a crime scene part of an investigation. But it is interesting that she seems to insist upon it. And I remember, these are experts at political spin. All of them are. And so what they're going to necessarily say, they're being intentionally vague about who it is that removed the camera, because technically he broke the law. And that's why it could be very important about who it is that they are protecting. Because it's, if I'm right, it's someone who knows damn well that they broke the law. Because they know the law. Because I think it's the TPU attorney. Now, why do I think this? Well, for one thing, the way that he is not giving up the footage means that he knows enough to know that he can't just hand it over to Candace. I would think that she would know that too. But also the fact that if he moved that chair and removed the SD cards, there's very little room for an attorney to get out of that really serious breach. Whereas if it's just a regular staffer or just someone who's just, on the crew, they can kind of claim ignorance and we're just thinking of what's the best thing to do. But if it's an attorney, he knew better. And I think that's why they are continuously keeping his name silent, because he could get into a lot of trouble. I mean, I don't know, but to me, disturbing a crime scene, is that something that you get disbarred for? I would imagine it would be. So, and if it was just a crew person, then tell us who it is. There wouldn't be the need for secrecy, because if he is just a crew person, then he didn't necessarily do anything wrong. He was following orders. He was just doing what he normally did. All of their stories would fit in, but he would not be in any danger of backlash then. The only reason that to keep his name silent is because there's still some potential backlash. And so that's what made me start thinking that maybe it's someone who would get in trouble just for having done it. And that's what led me to look at the TPU website. Now, originally, we heard from Andrew Colvett and his story about who it is. So I'm going to play that for you too.
Anyways, they then address the SD cards. And here is what Andrew had to say about the Turning Point affiliate, employee, somebody adjacent to Turning Point, who removed the SD cards from the camera that was behind Charlie in the immediate aftermath of the shooting. Take a listen.
Why did our team start taking down cameras immediately? Was it just in shock and just thinking like this is what we do and just not thinking it's a crime scene?
I think massive shock. I think there's been some stories about the SD cards or whatever. That was because even in the shock, there was an understanding that the proximity of those cameras were going to be evidence, and they wanted to make sure that it didn't get stolen out of the cameras. But B, they didn't want anybody to run in. I mean, there was those videos of the kid running and grabbing the hats.
Hats, yeah.
So there was an understanding. I mean, I talked to the team on that, and they said, because we know people can be evil.
Yeah.
And they grabbed the SD cards so that nobody could get that footage.
So that law enforcement could get it.
Did I answer your Maha question sufficiently? Yeah, okay. He loved Maha. Well, he loved Maha moms too.
I think I would have probably pushed back and asked, okay, but now that, the feds have kind of been fumbling the ball just a little bit, a lot of it, maybe just release everything and let the sleuths get on it and solve this thing. And that's kind of what I want. I want them to be more passionate about getting to the bottom of things a little bit. Am I maybe being selfish by thinking that if I was close to him as Andrew Colvett every day on the show, I would be like more fired up about all the things that are going wrong? And again, I appreciate that they also have to then turn this next page, and they still have donors. They still have the same donors that were making financial threats against Charlie and blackmailing him, in his own words, by the way. He said that he felt morally blackmailed by them if he had disagreements, and they were trying to control who he could speak to and who he could be friends with. And actually, by the way, we have a clip of Alex and Andrew speaking about that moral blackmail. Take a listen.
Now, that was when I saw this photo as I was meandering through the TPU website. Now, this person, to me, you have the beard, you have the glasses, you have the receding hairline, looks very similar to, and a little bit stockier build, this looks similar to the guy who took down the camera. But, of course, this is the attorney for Turning Point. Interestingly enough, for those of you that followed over from Megxit, you'll be interested to know that this gentleman got his start in law when he was going through law school. He got his start working with the Heritage Foundation. Interesting. Small world. Perhaps too small. But this gentleman, if this was him that did it, then again, back to the idea that an attorney should know better. And he would get into a lot more trouble than just a regular staffer for having removed the SD card. But I kind of put this on the back burner because they kept saying things, they kept being vague, they kept saying they were going through attorneys, and why would the attorney be at an event? Well, then Candace said this today, and this is what made me go back to this idea that this could be the man who took down the SD cards. I am going to add in a little addendum here as I'm reworking this video, getting it ready to upload. I have done some additional research, and apparently the Heritage Foundation, their biggest donors, let's just say it's very similar in nationality to the biggest donors at TPUSA. So it's all starting to make even more sense to me that there might be something about this gentleman worth looking into.
Then I speak to the individual who I told you guys that I recognized that had taken down the cameras minute 4 after Charlie was shot. The back camera of all the ones when you take the front camera, I don't know. Again, I'm not here to read into how people might act in an emergency event. But I thought it was weird that he was there in general, actually, that he was behind Charlie the entire time. I've never seen that. He's never been behind me at an event. He's never been lingering around me at an event. And I asked about that. I asked about just his presence behind Charlie, and plus the mysterious phone call that he was seen making in like minute 3 after Charlie was assassinated. And he told me explicitly that they were trying something new that day. Like it was something new. Charlie's super ambitious. And on the AV thing, they were trying something new and they wanted to be able to feed it back instantly to Arizona. None of it makes sense to me because these events are typically live streamed. But again, something new.
So when Candace said that it's someone who was not normally at these events, but someone who's been with TPUSA for a long time, someone who she even knew, someone who even she from the beginning seemed surprised that he was even there, when she said today that it's someone who usually isn't there, that's what made me start to wonder. I mean, why would the attorney be there? Well, maybe because they knew they needed an attorney there. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I know that today Candace said something about, was Charlie Kirk Truman? Was his whole life just a sham? And I'm really starting to believe that. And you can go on. I'm not ready to quite go that far, as some people are going online, and I've seen it, and I've heard it, and it's all kind of very sus. But if this is something that came from TPU, if people within TPU knew this was going to happen and betrayed Charlie this badly, then I'm kind of wondering if that wouldn't be a time when they would want the attorney around. Want him there to deal with things in the aftermath. Do you know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. It's a thought. Now, this is just a theory. This is just my own supposition. It's all allegedly. Do your own research and form your own conclusions. This is just the conclusion that I came to. And no, I don't know anything. I don't know these people. So, maybe if I knew this guy, I'd say, oh, definitely not. Ugh, he'd never do anything like this. I don't know. I don't know him. So I'm just going on what we do know. And I do know that a tech guy would always be there. It wouldn't be something where, he wouldn't be there this time around. He would have been there always. That's what, and Candace saying that it's someone who's usually not at the events, that's what made me think along these lines. That was what kind of solidified the idea in my head. It could be wrong. This is just a theory. But like I said, if they knew something was going to happen, that they knew it would be a good time to have an attorney there, that might be why. And I wonder if when he showed Candace the footage, if he showed her all of the footage. Because that footage should have been going while Charlie was on the ground. So beyond when the bullet hit, it should have been going when he was on the ground behind that table that we have no footage of. That camera would have been able to see that. And perhaps that's why they can't release the footage, because of what happens then. Do you know what I mean? Not so much the gunshot, because like Candace said, there's nothing really to see. So why hide the footage? Well, perhaps because there is something on there later that they don't want people to see. I don't know. These are just my ideas. But do, as always, let me know what you think. I look forward to reading your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you all have a great day.